Hi, everyone. It's Nico Bernie Miller, the CEO and Chief Innovator at Change 3. And in today's Growing Happily, we are going to ask and answer a very important question. If you are a business owner or anybody in between, the question that I want you to ask yourself as 2025 comes to an end is, do I CPA or not? That is the question. So, according to research, only about 30% of small businesses are working with a certified public accountant today. And many of you might be thinking, baby, I got a bookkeeper, I got a friend, I'm using QuickBooks or whatever it is, and that I don't need a CPA. Well, today I've got two incredible guests that might change your perspective on it. So hang tight, pull on in, grab a drink, get your seat, and join us for today's Growing Happily. Hi, guys. I love that intro. It always makes me jam. All right, everybody. I'm
Hello.
joined by Georgina Murphy and Ryan Henry. Hi, guys. So I'm going to give you each a chance to introduce yourselves to the group. I'm going to start with Georgina, our CPA on deck to answer questions.
Hi, I'm Georgina Malone Murphy. I own a company called Balance My Accounts, and I help small companies clean up their books and get ready for taxes so that they can streamline their business and focus more on their operations instead of the accounting. My background, I have had over 20 years experience as an accountant, CPA, and over 15 years of that was as a corporate controller.
Awesome. I wouldn't know that. I thought you were only 15 when I saw you.
Thank you.
Ryan Deere. Ryan Deere, look at this handsome. I love it when I have beautiful people that join me. Thank you guys both. So
Thank you.
Ryan Deere, introduce yourself to the group.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Nico. My name is Ryan Henry, and I work for the Internal Revenue Service, the other side of it all. I'm an internal revenue agent. I work for a division called Tax Exempt Government Entities. So I audit tax returns, and I've been doing that for the last 4 years. And before that, I was a tax preparer for 3 years or so. So I kind of had the chance to see both sides, and I'm excited for this conversation today.
Awesome. Well, it's going to be very relaxed conversation. The whole point of this is for everyone in our audience, those of you who are watching and who will watch the replay and all that, is for you to learn. So as we're going to the end of this year, we're going to be going into that season where you're getting ready for your taxes, right? And, it's all about strategic planning for how you run your business. And I can tell you, all these years I've been running business for decades, and having a CPA on deck that can ask and answer questions to you has been incredible. So that's my first question. Let's put it up. What are the common ways that a CPA can benefit a small business? Georgina, you want to jump in?
Well, there's several ways. As Nico said, you can have a bookkeeper or you can have a CPA. Both of them will do your books, some better than others, but mostly they'll get your books done. But what you get with a CPA is expert financial guidance, strategic business planning, tax compliance from a legal and regulatory perspective. They're required to know these things and to be educated every year on the new laws and the tax regulations, process optimization, and then also unsolicited advice. So what is your bookkeeper not asking you that a CPA will ask you or tell you?
Oh my gosh, so good. And I could tell you, I can speak to this. I've had just I would say 3 bookkeepers in my 20 years as a business owner. I've had long-standing relationships with each one. The one that I have now is awesome. And actually, I think I'm gonna have Georgina come into my crew because you can never have too much good advice. But the thing is, of course, as a business owner, especially when you have a really small business, you're like, I know how many pennies I got in my pot. I don't need somebody to tell me, or do books. But really, the thing that Georgina pointed out was the 2 things that I want you guys to double click on. The first one is tax compliance, because, people are out there telling you, oh, you could write this off, or you could do this, or you could do that, or, accrue this or whatever. Your cousin, Joe, or your cousin Bob was telling you, oh, this is what I do. I write my whole house off, right? Don't listen to your buddies about tax advice, okay?
Or
Work
Google or
with,
AI.
don't, oh my gosh, you're so right. We had a lawyer a couple weeks back, and that's what she said. So many people are asking AI legal questions. Like, don't do that. Don't ask AI. Don't ask your buddy. Don't Google it. Yes, of course, they're going to give you a result. But the thing is a lot of the stuff is nuanced. It's a function of local laws or, regulations or whatever, whether it's federal taxes, state taxes, you name it. And it's sometimes for these CPAs, it's a quick answer, right? They know. So, and they'll give you guidance. And that example that I gave you, I could write my whole house off. I've asked that year after year. Can I write my whole house off? No, you can't write your whole house off, right? No. And this is a red flag, right? And so having a CPA to ask those questions to, they're going to give you, sound advice. Even a crappy CPA will give you better advice than your cousin, Bob. So that's the first thing, is like, make sure that you can ask questions to be tax compliant. That's super important. And what you don't want to do is to be out of compliance and not have a decent plan to get into compliance, because people have different views of the IRS and different positions about it. But at the end of the day, those people are trying to follow the regulations and work with taxpayers to get those regulations complied with. And for the most part, they're not trying to steal your house or whatever. I mean, that might happen if you're that far out of compliance. But at the end of the day, the better you're organized and the better you're prepared, the better that conversation is going to go. And the other thing is that unsolicited advice, because I've definitely been in situations with my, current CPA. She was like, well, you really might want to do this instead. Or she open up my eyes on something that I might not have been thinking about. Hey, you could, handle this in this way or invest your money in that way and get a better result. So I think those are two things I want you guys to really think about. So Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I
Listen.
agree with that. Mostly the point of you having somebody to advise you throughout the year, because when I come in, it's maybe 2-3 years after, or
Wow.
sometime after, and it's a little bit too late at that point
Mm-hmm.
to fix. I mean, certain things you can fix and bring back to normal pretty easily, but I noticed that I see more better tax compliance with a taxpayer who has a CPA. And
Awesome.
another thing too, that I think of when we're having this conversation is the ability for CPAs to represent their taxpayer.
Oh yeah, that's such a great point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think of that because they may have a taxpayer may have maybe the somebody from their HR department trying to coordinate this audit, but there's a limit to what I can discuss with them. So it ends up being a lot of the taxpayer end up doing it all on their own for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's a difficult process I've seen. So I think
Yeah.
the ability to represent on behalf of the taxpayers, the biggest one of the biggest things.
Oh my gosh, there you go. People, we did our jobs. Have a good year. I'll talk to you now. but but no, you're totally right. I haven't been audited, and God willing, I'll never be audited. But I have had questions, or maybe I was late, something got lost once, there's all kind of stuff. And to have that CPA be like, oh yeah, for example, for me, I have employees in multiple states and different parts of the world, and so thanks be to God. But some states have different rules. You have to file unemployment papers and whatever the hell that you have to do, and you're supposed to do it on a regular basis. And sometimes that stuff gets lost. I've changed from my corporate headquarters in one place to moved it to another place. Now we're out in the globe, and so that can create some issues with getting paperwork or whatever. And so it's been indispensable to have like a Joe Gino or a CPA that's like, oh yeah, no problem. And they know what to do. Is it send an email, is it call them, whatever it is, they know what to do, and they cure it, and it's no issue, and I don't have to worry about it. And certainly if you were going to get audited, oh my gosh, right? Wouldn't it be great to have a Georgina that's like, yeah, I got it. I got all the papers. I know what to do. And they know exactly what to do, instead of you being like, what expense? And I have to go find the receipt, and right. And so it's definitely, I've heard people talk about how horrible it is to be audited, but I can imagine that a professional that knows exactly what that IRS agent is looking for, it's going to be a much less stressful experience for them. All right, cool. So good reasons to have a CPA. Let's go to the next question. What's the most common reasons why small businesses aren't using them, right? Because, based on this conversation, it's like, this is a no-brainer, of course. Well, how come only 30% of small companies are using a CPA? Any thoughts? I'll
I
start with
would go for
Georgina.
cost. I mean, cost. CPAs are going to, on average, be more expensive than a bookkeeper. Some people, and especially when you're first starting out, oh, I can do QuickBooks. I can do it myself. But the reality of the situation is running your business and taking the time to stop and do your books is really, you have to be really disciplined. And I mean, a lot of small business owners don't have the time or the discipline to spend their Saturdays and Sundays entering stuff into QuickBooks. And that's what I tell people when I talk to new clients. It's, they always come to me, I've got 3 years of books that I just never got around to doing, help me clean these up. But even that, now you're going to have to spend a lot of time with me. So if you get in, which is going to be very expensive because that's a lot of hours. So if you would have started off with that person doing your books and your CPA and setting up your business correctly and setting up your books so that, they are ready for taxes. You can default to the standard QuickBooks account. Is that going to be the best for your taxes? Not necessarily. So there's a lot of things. I think that's the main reason is the cost, but ultimately in the end, it's going to cost you more on the back end.
So Georgina, are you comfortable giving some numbers? Like, because, I mean, a lot of my clients are like, 10, $20 million a year companies, and a lot of them do have CPAs, but we're really talking about like those small businesses, maybe they make $500,000 a year or $1 million a year, something like that. Would a company like that, could they afford, say, somebody like you?
Well, so the way that I price my services is based on what I'm doing. So it can be anywhere from $50 an hour to $120. So if I'm giving you CPA advice, then you're going to get the higher rate. Whereas if you're coming in, I just need my books cleaned up. I have a new book special where you come in $500, get you 10 hours. I can get through your accounts and see what we need to do and get you a quote from there. So it all depends upon what you're needing and what I'm doing for you. So for me, I adjust according to my client.
Cool. So is it possible that a client, it might cost them a few $100s or a couple $100s, depending on how big their company is and how many transactions they have,
Yes. So
that's what it would cost?
right. So bookkeeping is, I do a monthly quote. So I have a monthly fee. So it could be anywhere based on your number of transactions. So it could be anywhere from 200 to 500, depending upon the amount of transactions that you have.
Sure. So when you think about that, guys, a couple $100, you probably got your, little nephew doing your social media and your bookkeeping too. And so, you probably spending more than that per week. And my point is, it's all about resource utilization. So some of your resources, your money, and that money might be better spent on a professional like a Georgina or any other CPA that you might engage with. Georgina, you're in Arizona, right?
Right.
But
I have clients everywhere. Yes.
That's
yes,
what I was going to say. Could you serve anybody in the United States?
Yes, I could.
Okay. And like, I know for lawyers that, it's usually you want to get a lawyer license in your state, but for a CPA, it's national. Is that how it works?
No, CPAs are licensed by state, but most states will allow you to, especially now that everything's gone digital and everyone is remote. Typically, I can provide services to a client in California as well. So
cool. Awesome.
Or any other state for that matter.
Yeah. So it's not as big of an investment. I think that was really the main point that I want to make sure our audience gets from this conversation is that, a lot of times people feel like, oh, a CPA, maybe that's for a bigger company. I don't need to spend that. My business is really simple, right? It's not just about that. It's about making sure you get, that professional advice, that you're tax prepared, right? I think that's really the message. You're prepared for your taxes. and that it's not as expensive as you think. So then that takes me to the question for everyone who's watching is, can you really afford not to invest in, having the support of a licensed professional to make sure that you are ready for your taxes and give you better visibility, maybe, right, of kind of how you're spending your money? That's the question I want you guys to be asking yourself. So Ryan, what do you think? What are some of the common reasons why you think, like, especially for you, because you're finding the businesses that decided not to do nothing, or the organizations. What do you know? Do they tell you why they often don't have somebody there to support them?
I never ask. I don't know, but I do
Yeah.
notice that it's not always because of cost. Because
Mhm.
I have
Yeah.
audited companies that they have enough.
Bigger. Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, I could tell they would have enough to
Mhm.
pay for a CPA, and
Sure.
I don't know the reason why. That's why I'm very interested to to
It's
listen to you
crazy.
guys have this conversation, because I don't know whether it's out of I can't tell the reason why, but
It's
I do see
crazy.
it
Do they
often.
have bookkeepers? Do they
They have
have like an
bookkeepers,
alternative?
they would have
I
a
think that's
bookkeeper,
why.
they would have a lot of
Mhm.
times they would have a HR
Yeah.
personnel, and they
Sure.
have different departments to where they have
Yeah.
people who are specialized in answering if there is a question about their
Sure.
inventory, if there is a question about their payroll, they would have somebody that
Sure.
is well knowledge in that, but still at
Sure.
this, maybe that is the reason why that
I
they
think that's
do that.
why. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that might be either folks don't realize that a bookkeeper isn't the same as a CPA, and
yeah,
that the bookkeeper won't help you in the way the CPA can. And so there we go. We did our job again.
Well,
Right?
in bigger companies that can afford different department heads and stuff like that, they typically will outsource their taxes to an
Another
external
company.
CPA if you to
Yeah.
a certain size, and that
Mhm.
does get expensive. But at that point, you should be making enough money to cover that. Should be part of
Yeah.
your budget. I have to get my
Yeah.
taxes done,
Yeah.
and and getting them done correctly is going to once again cost you less in the long run.
Sure. Yeah. So let's break this part down too, for the group, because when you have employees, right? I have employees, I have contractors, I'm myself an employee. So you have, and you mentioned HR. And so I'm a guess that's because, right, you're withholding taxes, right? You're paying your employees, you withhold some of their pay, you pay that to the IRS for their taxes and all that. And so I think based on my research, that's an area where, there's a lot of compliance issues, and they call it the trust account. It's very important that you stay in compliance with that kind of stuff, and that you really make sure that you're on board with it. And I can imagine that companies might maybe be lax about it, or maybe they run into financial issues and those sorts of things become an issue. Or other things I would love you guys' thoughts on is, because I had this conversation with my CPA not too long ago. I was like, can I just treat these people like contractors? Like, why do I have to do this? Like they work from home. Like, can't they just be contractors? No, right? It's like, if it's an employee, it's an employee. And so you need that CPA to give you that discipline. And I can imagine that you could have these successful companies or bigger companies that I don't want to suggest that they're trying to do something not right, but they had to have a preconceived notion, and they might be thinking, oh, this makes sense. I'm gonna just do it this way. And that's really not in compliance with the regulations. And again, that's why it's so helpful to have somebody like a Georgina who's gonna say, hey, that's really not in compliance. Like, I wouldn't recommend you do that. And that'll help you think about some of your strategic choices in a different way and solve that problem, right? For me, I've had times where I made a ton of money and other times where I have made less money, and I had to make hard decisions and, or figure out what I'm gonna do. And it's been so helpful to have, you know, licensed professionals that could give me that insight so I'm making better decisions. Do I always make them right? Probably not. But I'm certain that they're better because of the advisory that I get from, I call them my dream team, right? Of these experts. And I don't mess with them too often because I'm cheap, right? so so I'm conscious of it, but those little bit of times that I do talk to them, once a quarter, once a month, whatever, depending on how much pace of my business, it is priceless, you guys. All right. Anything else about what are the common reasons why we think small business owners aren't using CPAs? Georgina, when you talk to new potential clients and they decide not to work with you? Is it because they decided not to use a CPA, or what do you think? What's your experience?
Um, a lot of times they'll come and talk to me and then go back to their previous bookkeeper or whoever and kind of give them a scolding about what we talked about, I guess, is sometimes that happens.
Sure.
I think sometimes it's just they don't have, I'm a very straightforward person. And when I talk to my potential clients, I say, listen, you're not going to hand your books to me and say, here, fix them. That's not possible. You are going to have to spend some time with me cleaning up your books or whatever this project is. Even the monthly books, if staying on top of them keeps that year-end tax crunch time to a minimum, right? Keeping them going every single month. And so, my requirements for you as my client is that, you talk to me at a minimum once a month. We have to spend time together going over transactions that I can't just get for transact. Oh, I can. And that's the biggest problem I find is that bookkeepers a lot of times will just go, okay, well, I'm just going to put it in this random account over here. And then that account just keeps growing and growing and growing. And then ultimately,
no idea what it is.
Right. Nobody has ever taken the time. And so ultimately, I think that me being straightforward, you're going to have to work with me. Sometimes they're like, oh, well, I just want to hand it to somebody and have them do their magic.
Oh, wow.
And magic's not possible without to me, I'm a team, right? We're working together to make things better. So, and once again, I'm back to if your accountant, CPA, bookkeeper is not bugging you on some sort of consistent basis, then you probably need to be asking, do I need someone that, is a little, that is going to bug me and keep me on track? So,
yeah. So let's talk about that. I love where you just went with it. Cause now I'm like, girl, we're going to have to talk more often. So would you say the right cadence is once a month for a small business? I know bigger companies have different cadences, but for small business, what's that right time frame to kind of update your books or enter your transactions or whatever, like you mentioned?
Well, I will start off, if it's a brand new client, usually what I do is I help them set up their journal ledger and their books. And then we can talk about going one way or the other. If you, like I said, if you're disciplined enough and you want to input your information into QuickBooks, I can show you how to do that. And part of what I do is teach clients how to do those things. Because ultimately, that's the most efficient way of doing things. If you can go in and say, oh, this receipt right here, this charge on my credit card was for this, you're going to know that better than me. So sometimes I have clients that do that. So if that's the case, maybe we'll get together once a month and we'll talk about the transactions that they have questions about, and I'll review the books and come back with my questions. And then we'll go over the financials and talk about numbers and where the company's going and what, I see from that perspective. So that's one case. I have other clients who they just, if I don't have a weekly meeting with them to talk about it, it just won't get done. And even then I'm having to pester them about that. So it always depends upon the client and their comfort level and how they want to address it. So I'm pretty flexible. So, but I am going to pester you. If I've been gone a month and I haven't talked to you, you're going to hear from me a lot.
That's really good. So Ryan, what do you think from the IRS side of things? What would be your recommendation for a small business? What's that cadence that they should be really looking at their books and trying to make sure that it's accurate?
Right. Yeah. As I'm listening, I'm thinking about the audits with CPAs that have gone well, and that level of organization that Georgina is speaking on, of monthly, even sometimes by case weekly. Those have been the smoothest, and the reason I think is, and I guess another reason why a benefit of having a CPA is that at the beginning of an audit, there'll be a long list of things it depends on the type of audit. If it's a full scope audit, for example, it could be a long 2-page paper of items that may or may not be applicable to your business. So I think having that level of organization, and I guess knowing a paper trail, really, you have that communication between you and your CPA, and what month, and your CPA knows what month that we talked about that. We have the email chain. Okay, we can go straight there. Or even, we don't, that doesn't apply right now. Let's move on and not spend 2 weeks searching for something that we know it doesn't apply to your situation.
Sure. Wow. So talk to me, what is what's the most likely reason why a small business might get audited? What, in your experience?
Oh, I have no idea. I really don't.
Well,
I
for the
really
audits
don't.
that you see, what do you think is the reason why they're, because you mentioned that it might be a few years, is it because people aren't filing taxes, or, what's the purpose of an audit from your experience with the IRS?
I haven't audited anywhere they just pop up after X amount of years with the return. So meaning they
Yeah.
haven't in a while. I haven't seen
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. Mhm.
Um, it, I wish I knew why. I get this question all the time, and the best
Yeah.
answer that I can give is that it's an automated system that it's a
Oh.
different
Oh,
department that I yeah, it
interesting.
could be automated. It could
Oh,
be, person that
it's
is
like
actually
Google's algorithm, right? It's looking
yeah.
for signals and stuff.
I wish there was
Wow.
a secret code that I could tell people, hey, just
Tell.
don't do this and you're good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's not
Yeah.
really any indication
Wow.
too
I
much of the
bet
time
you, I
why.
guarantee you, based on what you just said, I guarantee you it's some kind of an algorithm. It's like
Yeah,
Google's algorithm. It's some system, and it's paying
So
attention to all your
randomized.
returns.
Hmm.
yeah,
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 it's not even that. It's like looking for patterns, it's paying
Right.
attention to your returns and your filings and all that kind of stuff, and looking for certain things. And if they see it too many times or whatever, then it's like, this motherfucker needs somebody to talk to him,
maybe, yeah. And I do notice,
Mhm.
not every time I audit a return, there's something wrong.
Mhm. Yeah,
The
sure.
there's it is sometimes where I'll audit a return, uh, all clean. Maybe there's something that needs more clarification, so we have to go back to
Sure.
previous years because they,
Sure.
kind of correlate with one another. But even both
Sure.
of those returns are fine. So it
Yeah.
could be there's absolutely nothing wrong with the return. Everything is spot on and perfect, and it just
Sure.
happens for that randomized selection that year, that month. Something in the
Interesting.
air. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's so interesting. But again, back to the point of this conversation, right? To CPA or not to CPA. And I think, my whole goal, because, like you guys know, my whole vibe is helping businesses grow happily. And I've done this for 20 plus years myself, growing my own business. And it's a roller coaster. Sometimes it goes great, sometimes it doesn't. And the goal, what I've learned in all that time is, the better prepared you are and the more confident you can be because you've got good operations, you've got good processes in place, you've got good people in place, then when you do run into issues, because you will, doesn't matter how great your business is or whatever you've got going on, you could have the dream team, and I hope you do, there will always be issues. And that's actually what we as business owners and professionals, I recommend you prepare for, is there will be issues. So how do you go through those issues with the most confidence and the least amount of stress, and still have your hairdo later? And so that's back to CPA or not, right? And I hope so far, halfway into our conversation, is what we've shown you is that a CPA is not a bookkeeper. It's not your cousin Bob. It's not your QuickBooks. So whatever you're using that might make you feel like, oh, I don't need a CPA, it really doesn't replace that expert guidance. And that the expert guidance is probably not as expensive as you thought. And that if you don't have it, that when you do run into issues, because you will, and like what Mr. Henry just said to us, it's possible you could get audited. You didn't do nothing wrong, baby, right? Your tax returns could
Yeah,
be pristine, and your number was up, right? You won the lottery.
yeah,
It's completely possible.
exactly. Yeah.
And so, right, having a CPA that's ready there to represent you, that's like, oh, baby, we got this on lock. These books are good. Don't worry. I know exactly what this stuff is. Then you can be like, okay, I can still have my, mochaccino latte and I'm all good, right? You don't have to worry too bad. And that's really what it's about. When something happens and you need to deal with, a big supplier, IRS, I'll tell you another example of why it's so helpful to have a CPA. So, I moved my headquarters from Scottsdale to Globe. We're building, a new facility, and we were trying to get funding from, rural broadband funding, because we're out in the sticks now, guys. We have a zero carbon footprint because we're all sustainable energy. Yay, right? We're out in the sticks, but no internet, right? Or the internet, obviously we do have internet, but the internet we have isn't fiber or, high capacity broadband. So I thought, oh, I'm apply for some high capacity broadband, and baby, the paperwork involved, and it's almost all financial, right? All the, I mean, like what Ryan said, 2 pages of stuff. We need this, we need that. you know, what was it? A certificate of intent and letters of good standing and, all this type of stuff. And again, the first place I went to was my CPA because like almost all of that stuff that was involved um, was related to our finances and our banking relationships and, our understanding. When I went to get certified as a woman owned and as a minority owned businesses, right? It's an official certification and designation. Guess who I had to call? My CPA, because you got to provide financials and other stuff. So for me as a business owner, it has been invaluable to have an incredible professional like Georgina to support me through things. It's not always because you're in an audit. It could be you're trying to grow, you're trying to get a bank loan, you're trying to establish a new vendor relationship. A lot of times when I'm doing business with very large companies, I've been blessed to become the supplier of really, really large companies. Well, guess what? A lot of times they want to see your bank, standing. You got to have, credit ratings and all kind of stuff. And again, a lot of times that stuff is really helped when you have a CPA that can advise you or even, file that stuff for you. So,
Well, and just
third question.
planning
Yes,
for
please, please, please. Yeah.
just planning for your success, in your business. You want
Yeah.
budgeting and revenue forecasting and cash flow
Yeah.
management, your
Yeah.
long-term financial planning, all of that,
Yeah.
just even a couple of years out is important to keep an eye on. Are you on track? How do you know you're on track? And those are the things that a CPA can help you with.
Oh my gosh, Georgina, baby, we're going home now. That was the last. No, but you're right. You're so right. And I think about my own business. Some of that stuff I could do better, right? I think I could engage my CPA. What I've learned, see, it's always learning. That's our goal. What I've learned from here, I'm not utilizing, the talent that I have. And because like you said, we all get busy. So having someone is going to be really proactive and in front of you and encouraging you and supporting you is helpful. If you guys are wondering, you're like, I don't know if I'm convinced. Well, think about every Fortune 500 company in the world, right? Or in this country or any country. They have a whole department of CPAs. They have a whole finance department. They have a chief financial officer. They have a whole organization of individuals to help them with everything we've just talked about. And well, why? Because it's essential to running a successful business and growing happily. So, yeah, we don't need a whole department. And, when you have a very small business, do you need a CFO? Probably overkill. But, having an outsourced CEO or CFO, right? Having a fractional CFO, which would be that
Right.
CPA partner, that really it's a good investment. All right. We're going into the final part of today's conversation. Just to let you know, if you're watching us on the live stream, if you have questions, we may not answer questions that come in through the chat. Feel free to post them because we do monitor those things. But if you want to ask questions live to either Georgina or Ryan or any other of our series for Growing Happily, then please register and join the live webinar experience because that's where we do the Q&A. Now let's ask and answer the third question. So we talked about, what is the best benefit? Now, here we go. What do you get? How will working with a CPA help a business be best prepared for IRS filing? So we've talked about this a little bit, but let's lean into it because this is a big one. Georgina,
Go
you
for it,
want to
Ryan. I was going to have
Okay,
Ryan
yeah,
go first instead.
Yeah, I know. I
yeah,
know. Ladies, said we have Georgina go first. So Ryan, you want to walk us through it?
yeah. How should I approach this? I mean, I guess I can walk through the audit process
Sure.
Oh,
and
yeah.
where CPAs come into play. So, like I said earlier, we'll send out a letter, depending on what type of audit. We'll just say in the case of a full scope audit, where it's 2 to 3 pages long of we need these documents to supporting documents. I guess in that scenario, the CPA would like we said earlier know if those are applicable or not. Another thing is somebody that having a CPA is familiar with the taxpayers' rights. So,
Oh, interesting.
regarding, for example, a more common one is statute of limitations years, and if at some point it comes to be where previous or future years are needed to be open, a CPA kind of knows, what balance to keep it in as far as timing.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, I guess I got kind of ahead of myself, but I guess those are the first
Really
two that
great.
come to mind.
No, those
Um,
are great. I mean, those are
and
very
then,
technical things too.
yeah, and I guess throughout the audit is that communication of this is, just in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
the audit does go a lot smoother because I get it. A small business owner, any business owner, it does feel personal,
Mm-hmm.
and with the CPA, they take it often with the same amount of care, but just coming from a different, more understanding perspective, and really trying to get to the core of what the issue is, if any,
Yeah,
and it kind of speeds the process more without so much back and forth of whether it's applicable, whether it's not, and it just
sure.
streamlines the process a lot easier, because you get about 2 weeks to respond to a letter. A lot of the time, if it's just a taxpayer by themselves, small business owner by themselves, they're going to take 15 days instead of
Yeah.
to say, wait, to
I
say,
don't know
wait,
what's
we
going
don't
on
have
here.
that. Can you
Yeah,
clarify what you mean on the 15th day? Okay, I'll give you.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
just somebody
yeah.
being on top of that process, it speeds it up, a lot more. And then also through the closing process, that can probably be the most stressful, I'd say, if there's
Mhm.
something wrong. If not, hey, sign a couple
Yeah,
papers, moving on.
yeah.
But yeah, through the resolution phase, I think it is helpful, for a CPA to know the business operations and how to move forward, so
Sure.
that the issue doesn't occur again.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great feedback. And it's like having insurance, right? That's how I see it. A CPA and a lawyer, having those that you have a relationship with is almost like having insurance to make sure you don't run into. I mean, as nice as you are and delightful as you are, I would prefer not to have to deal with you, Mr. Henry.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get
I
it.
would prefer not to have to cross paths. I prefer to be our family, or meet on the street, but not for business type of dealings, if you
I get
if
it.
you know what I'm saying.
I get it. I
And
completely get
and
it.
I feel like it's insurance, right? It keeps you from having to meet. I mean, look, some people out there might be like, hey, if every IRS agent is like this, then sign me up, right? But but you know what I'm saying? It's like in most cases, I think they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that's how I see it, right? It's so many benefits you can get from this investment of your time and resources. And there's also so much kind of protection that it can help you. Like, look, not every CPA is good. So maybe Joe, you can talk to us about your recommendations, how people can select a good CPA. Not everyone is good, but because they're licensed, they have to, prove that they have at least some basic level of right knowledge to maintain that license. So I think it's really preventative. So Joe, what do you think?
Uh,
If you want to answer the same question.
I'm going to
Mhm.
go back to what I said before is, interview your CPA, talk to
Yeah.
them about what you want and what your expectations are. Sometimes you don't know what you want. I understand that. But
Yeah.
then the CPA that you're interviewing should be telling you what you want, right?
True.
Because I know, and you may not know because you're not
Mhm.
an accountant and you're not a CPA. So once again, back to if you have an interview with a CPA and they're like, yeah, I'll do your books, I'll do your taxes. This is how much it's going to cost, and see you later. I mean, I would think I would move on and find somebody that gets a little bit more
Mm.
personal as far as like,
Yeah.
tell me about you, tell me about your business, help me understand what's going on, because you can't do good books, you can't do good accounting, and you can't do good taxes if you don't understand a business. So
Yeah.
it's important to know exactly what that business is doing and how they're operated and where they're going to plan for the best, or have the best strategy to go forward and to be successful in the accounting, bookkeeping, and the taxes. So when it comes to finding a CPA, make sure it's somebody who's asking you lots of questions as well. And then forgot what the second question was. I'm going to link this. How does the CPA help you with the IRS and your audits? I know in my experience, the audits that I've done, I'm a very organized person. So when my auditors come in, we sit down, we talk about what we need, go find it, bring it back. And it's been, I wouldn't say it was delightful, but it was a pleasant experience. And we,
Mhm,
everything got done and it got done quickly and we wrapped up quickly. So, and the auditors were very grateful for that as well.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
having somebody that knows where your documents are, where you keep them, how to get a hold of them and to forward those to the IRS agent is very important. So sometimes it's not just about plugging stuff into QuickBooks. It's, hey, let's go through your documents and make sure that your documents are in order so that in the off chance that you do get audited, then you're ready to go.
Right. Yeah. But that's advisory, right? That's what you were saying
Mm-hmm.
earlier. And back to what I was saying, it's like almost like insurance, because
Right.
honey, you don't want to know. But
And it's
I'm sure for
right.
some of us, it's like there have been times in my career and my journey as a business owner will be like, I have no idea where my documents are. And oh my gosh, that is gone. I don't know. Right. I know what the box looks like, but I have no idea what it is. And to have someone that has got that data infrastructure already in place so you don't have to have that pressure, or that they can advise you, hey, I recommend you do this, I recommend you set this process up, I recommend you use this tool. That's priceless. I
Right.
think that's
Right.
really, and it's stuff that you wouldn't might not have necessarily found on your own.
Right.
All right, so Joe, Miss Ma'am. So what are some things, what are your, 3 or 4 things you would recommend for any small business owner out there today, regardless of their size? What are some things that they should be looking at and thinking about? And, could they, if they wanted to and get some support from you, could they reach out to you?
Absolutely. Number one, are your books done? Are they done
Mhm,
correctly? Do you have someone that can do that for you? And it could be a bookkeeper. There's a lot of good bookkeepers out there, but
mhm,
bookkeepers don't always know all the questions to ask. So,
mhm.
at a minimum, have a CPA on retainer so that you can have them reviewing your books, like I said, on a minimum, a monthly basis, just so that you can feel confident in what your bookkeeper is doing. And
Sure.
then number two, we haven't talked about this a lot. You brought it up once, but local jurisdiction compliance and reporting. You've got payroll taxes, sales and use tax. There's all kinds of little taxes in different states that based on the industry that you're in that you have to pay and be in compliance with. So that's something that is important to get on your radar, and you may not know that. So having a CPA to help you with that is really important. And let's see, I have to come up with three. Um,
Those two were pretty darn good. But yeah,
yeah,
well, give me one more, girl.
okay. And then, once again, we're back to tax compliance. You want to have somebody that knows what they're doing there, that can that can steer you in the right direction and help you get all those credits that that you're entitled to. So,
Yeah.
and get things put in the right spots and have them ready. I mean, doing your books monthly is going to shorten that time. Even if you use, your CPA just for your taxes, knowing that you have good books throughout the month, throughout the year is going to shorten that amount of time you pay to have that tax return done by somebody else.
Oh, for
So
sure.
it
Yeah,
definitely
no,
speeds up the process.
such great advice, such great advice. And so back to, our universe, for those of you who are on the live stream, we're going to end pretty soon, but a couple of points because I always like to highlight the double clicks. So if you're a content producer, for example, which is today's most fastest growing type of an entrepreneur, you got a YouTube channel or maybe you a Twitch streamer, you're starting to make money. Well, you guys really should abso-freaking-lutely connect with a CPA that you like, that you could vibe with, because you're generating a lot of income. And honey, you can't just keep it. I mean, yes, you can keep your money, but you are definitely need to pay taxes of some sort. And a CPA will help you figure out what is the right structure for your income. Are you a 1099 independent contractor? Are you a business? Are you an entity? What is it? I can't tell you, but that would be something that would absolutely you want to talk to a CPA about. And how do you structure that so that the decisions you're making, even if you're like, I'm just a streamer, but no, you're a business, right? It's no difference than
Mhm.
I'm just a baker, right? Same difference. So make sure you're, thinking about that at the start of your business. If you're already doing it and you're out there, it's a possibility that you might be out of compliance. Maybe you don't even know it. And so again, especially if you're starting to generate a lot of money, look, baby, if you're a drug dealer, okay, I get it. You don't want a CPA, but that's a whole nother scenario that you should definitely get some professional advice on, and not, and can make sure you're in compliance when you do that kind of stuff, and to stop doing it, right? Because that's what they're going to advise you. But my point is, if you have a legitimate business or a business activity that's generating revenue, there's almost almost 100% certainty that there's some tax, requirements for you. You need to be paying some sort of taxes. Is it personal taxes? Is it business taxes? Is it a combination? And those kind of questions are things that a bookkeeper probably aren't going to help you answer as well as a CPA would. And so that's my big input for all of you guys, regardless of what kind of business you run, how big or how small. If you don't have a CPA to advise you today, that is my, New Year's resolution for you guys, that'll be on your list for 2026. And Joe Gigan gave you some great guidance on how do you find a good one. Are they asking you questions? They want to get to know you and your business. And is this somebody that you like to chat with, right? Because you can be talking to this person a lot.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, obviously, I loved how you pointed out how you I teach people. Oh my gosh, that is priceless. Because as business owners, we can't call our our lawyer or our CPA or whatever every 5 minutes when we need to make a decision. And so having a provider that's going to teach you and advise you and really help you learn so you can make better decisions as you go is really priceless. And that's really what will make you be more likely to grow and to do it happily, is to build your skills and to find people who help you do that. So with that being said, any last comments before we end the live stream and see who in our expert or interactive session want to ask questions? Any last comments from Ryan? Any last comments?
No, this is a great conversation. It's interesting to hear the other side of it all. I'm usually just in the IRS office worried about, what documents are where, but no, it's really interesting to hear the process that happens, before it gets to an audit. And yes, I thank you guys for
Awesome. And
speaking.
Georgina? Thank you, dear. And Georgina,
Yeah,
any last comments for the audience?
No, not all IRS auditors are bad. See, Ryan's amazing.
I gotta be honest with you guys, over these last few years, I've had to deal with more government agencies for one reason or another. Is it, the Small Business Administration? Is it the IRS? Is it the, Broadband Commission, whatever? And I have to say, it has been a delight. Like whatever they're doing with the whole hiring and nurturing and all that, I have been really surprised. And do you know what I do? You're going to laugh, Ryan. Don't laugh at me, people. But do you know what I do whenever I have a great interaction with someone who works for the government, whether it's federal or state or whatever? I always say, thank you so much for serving our country or serving our community or whatever. Like what you do when I see military personnel, my brother, as may or not know, my brother was in the Marine Corps for 32 years. And so whenever I see service people, I'm always like, thank you for your service. And a lot of people do that. But I always feel like when you deal with a really good public servant and they're serving you, as well, I always say that too. I say, thank you so much for your service.
That
So,
would be a
Ryan,
first time if I hear that. That would be
I
a
would,
first
well,
time.
you know what? You're about to get it right now,
Okay.
Mr. Ryan Henry. Thank you for your service
Thank
to
you.
our nation. And you've been such a delight, and you're really nice. And I hope that, you're this kind and supportive for, everyone that you're dealing with. And if you deal with this person right here, this is my person, and I'm gonna have to talk to you about it if not. But the point is what I'm learning is it's like there's not that adversarial scenario that I think a lot of times people present. Oh, when you have to deal with the government, it's not. Actually, it's people, right? Our government are us. We are the people, right? And so it doesn't have to be adversarial. And I find that if you go into it with a remembrance that there's a person there, and that person's usually going to have empathy and try to work with you and accomplish whatever they're trying to accomplish. So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And guys, thank you so much for joining us today on Growing Happily. We are working on our 2026 plan. Look out for a survey. We're going to be doing a survey. We're actually going to start to bifurcate in 2026 because a lot of our audience are professionals, marketing professionals primarily, sometimes sales professionals in larger companies, and business owners and key professionals in small companies. And so, right, what a business owner needs is not what the head of marketing needs in a big company. And so you're going to see that in 2026, we're going to bifurcate a lot of the learn and support and nourishing content that we produce, so you can get the right information in the right format. And also we are working very hard to roll out our podcast, so it's called Growing Happily, right? And in that podcast, we're going to be talking about things like this. What do you need to grow your business happily? What can you do to grow yourself happily? Because everything really starts with you. And anytime somebody says, oh, you got your work life and you got your home life, that's actually not really that true, because you're the same person. You're just in a different context, and making sure that you are healthy and happy and stable and filled with joy and really growing is the most important thing that you can do. And I've learned how to do a little bit of it. I guess I could probably get better. And I've been around a little bit of a while, half a century now. And so for all of you that are interested, that's what we'll be focused on, is growing happily in 26. And so we'll be talking about things for your business, things for your career, and things for you as a person, and sharing insights. I've got this crazy idea, and anybody who wants to share, please let me know. You can put in the comments, you can email me, you can hit on the chat. But my idea is I'm going to try to live stream every day for 30 days. And every day it'll be like 15 minutes of positivity. So 30 days of delight is what I'm planning to call it. I might start it in the middle of this month. I might wait until after the holidays and start it January 1. But the whole focus is, giving a little bit of positivity and, insights to help boost your day. If you don't know how to make a pot roast, I know Miss Georgina does, because she's an incredible cook, you guys. But right, sometimes you might be like, that's not my lane. Like for me, it really wasn't my lane. But I've learned how to do some stuff, when you have a family, or maybe you're building a family, and like just having some tips and tricks where you're like, oh my gosh, where has this been my whole life? And so that's what I'll do for 30 days. And then in our podcast, that's what we'll be talking about, is what are some tips and tricks, some life hacks, so that you personally and your business can grow happily. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. Georgina and Ryan, most of all, thank both of you for joining me today. And we're going to end the live stream portion. And anybody who's in the webinar, if you have questions, post them in the chat. Ryan and Georgina will stick around for a little bit longer to answer your questions. Thank you, guys. Keep growing happily.